Hi, I'm Ursula and I'm an alcoholic. And I'm sober, but for the grace of God. And if it's California AA or if it's Beaufort AA, AA is AA. AA is in a book in the 12 steps. I think I better start in the beginning. I'm a nervous wreck and it itches everywhere. If I had a nerve, I'd tell you a joke first. I was born in Germany, East Germany, or you call it East Prussia. My father was in the export-import business, and my mother was a domestic engineer. We, we were 6 children, 3 boys and 3 girls, and I was the 4th. From 6 to 4, I went to elementary school, and from 6 to 10, I went to elementary school, and from 10 to 14, I went to high school. I got my diploma when I was 14. We don't have a lot of clowning around or 3 months vacations. We got to learn a lot. But anyhow, I don't remember too much about my early childhood. I hear people sometimes say they remember when they were 5 and 4 and 3, and I don't remember nothing like that. I remember about, I would say, must have been 7 or 8, something like that. That's what I remember, when the siren constantly went and the bombs were flying, and we hung out more in the cellar than we were upstairs. And the fear, there was so much fear there. When we came out of the cellar, there was this burning fire like phosphor, and we were scared. And I don't even remember my dad. I don't remember much of my dad. He was an import and export, in export business. And he was very strict, He just said, to look at you, you run. He believed in children should be seen and not heard. And you know where I am today, he was right. My kids so have heard too much, They listen to me and watch to me and want to do homework at the same time. So my father was right. But I don't know much about my father. He was not much home, and I remember whenever he came home, that I know for sure, then obviously had a baby afterwards, My mother raised us all. My mother was my mother and my father and a friend, and she was everything to us. The last I saw of my dad when I was 12. When I was 12 years old, we were all evacuated. We were all put in these big, what you call those big wagons, we put cows and stuff in, so you get a whole bunch of people in. And we were shipped out of there because the city was burning, and some went in there that way, and some went out of ships, and ships sunk, and you hear them screaming and hollering. And that's usually what I remember, is a lot of fear and a lot of screaming and hollering. And that's the last time I saw my dad. I don't know. The way I've learned in the AA, if I want to say I love my dad, what I mean is I haven't really known him, but I do respect him. He was a good provider. And even if he never told me he loved me or never remember sitting on his lap, I don't think that's really important. He was a provider as long as he was there, and if that's not loving somebody, I don't know what is, So the last time I seen him when he was 12, and then my mother took care of us. We've been shipped all over the places. We've been so many places I don't remember. We've been in refugee camps, and then we've been in a place where they're all in on the floor, before they find places for you, and then one place we were in the mountains, and my mother hired us girls in the attic, and that's when the Russian moved in, and they weren't civilized either, and you saw all the shooting, killing, raping, and screaming, and the bodies, and So my mother used to hide us girls in the attics, and then we got kicked out of there. There was no food, and then we ended up in a place one time. There were two camps. One was occupied by the Russians. It used to be German camps where the soldiers were. The other side was for refugees. And so we used to go out at night and we steal apples and stuff like that, and coal and bake for food. And from there they found us a place, and it was on the outskirts. But anyhow, where we ended up, that's where the communists moved in, where the wall is up now. I lived there for the next 12 years. But anyhow, we got this nice place. You know, people had to rent out. There were motels or hotels, and they had to be rented out for refugees, the upstairs. So we had two rooms upstairs, one on one side where my mother slept, on 4 bricks and a straw sack, and there was this old-fashioned stove, you know, where you're cooking, and then across the hall on the other side, we had a room, and there were 4 beds in it. Whatever we owned was shoved under the bed, and there was one table with 2 chairs, and there was no heat, and there was nothing. It was right underneath the roof. And I thought it was pretty cold up here in this room where we're here now in the motel, but it was colder down there. It was so cold because he had nothing to wear, you know. Everything was on rations, you know. You get 1 pair of socks for all winter on rations, and then in the other cart you get yarn to to fix your holes in that pair of socks. And in the winter, the streetcar don't go. You go dump in your wet clothes and go to work, you know, and that's just the way it was. I can't remember being a child as I know my children were, or being a teenager. Here you go to a motel and snuggle up, and you go to beach parties, and I missed all of that. What we did is go beg for food, you know, and steal food, and it was just not a good side anyhow. When I got to A and somebody said, "You a sheep and a thief and a liar," and I didn't like it. Even if you steal out of hunger, a thief is a thief, you know. But see, that was then. I'm not the same person anymore. So we lived. I got this job when I was 14. My mom took care of all of us kids, and there were no food stamps, and there was no welfare, and there was no nothing. And since my mama didn't know anything at that time, so what she had to do in the beginning, she had to go and clean offices up. So we had some food, so we had something to eat. And then she still, when I was 14, she let me have a trade, and I learned how to fix fur coats. And my eyes got so bad, you know. I tell you exactly when it happened. I was the youngest one there. And I had to come in early in the winter, make the fire, and in the summer I had to come early. I was the youngest there. I was 14, and I was about there 6 months, so 14 and a half. And the young lady that had a birthday, and I was invited to the birthday party, and the bell went up, food, food, food. I was so drunk, I don't even know how I got home. Her brother brought me home, and he said that I used to pee in my pants, and I laid in my own, you know what. Oh my God. I never really understood about guilt, you know. I never had any guilt. I didn't hurt anybody, but I had a lot of shame and a lot of fear, because my mother didn't bring me up like that. My mother taught me everything I'm learning in AA, and not the dirty jokes either, the good part, you know. But the jokes are good, you know. That's what I'm here to laugh, to live, you know. I died for. But anyhow, so like I said, and from the first time I was then 14 and a half, from the first time I drank, I had a form of epilepsy. I had these spells, my hand crimped together, and I had white in front of my mouth, and I couldn't talk, and I fall out of the bed, and I get these spells. And so my mom took me, I stopped working for about 6 months, and she took me to all kinds of doctors and stuff, and nothing worked. And then I ended up in one place, and I know today what kind of institution it was, because I was involved in hospital institutions that have been in AA. It was a place, where they unpack and pack and unpack and pack. When you get shock treatment, that sort of thing. And you try to find out what was wrong with me, Well, it probably didn't occur to them even to ask me, drinking was... But anyhow, they took some water out of my spine, they pumped air in, and I felt every damn bit of it, and I fell out of the bed again, and they say, oh, just leave her there, she's going to fall out again. So I told my mom, and I couldn't speak, see, I couldn't answer you. So I told my mom, if she don't get me out, I'm going to kill myself. I don't think I had the nerves, but that's what I said. So my mom got me out of there, and she took me to a guy who deals with herbs. And he says, when I get married, I'll be okay. Well, I didn't get married, but I was okay. The spells left me. The guy even wanted to marry me, and I thought, he got a lot of nerves after what he did to me. The poor guy. What a screwed up life, Anyhow, so I stayed there until I was about 18. I finished that job, but my eyes got so bad, and I thought it was the hair, I know today was the alcohol. And I always had enough money to buy a drink, and then you usually find somebody who buys you the others. I could never understand, When I got here, people used to say they drink to fit in, or they drink to get off the thing. And when I was new, it was so important to me that I felt the same you felt, and I repeated the same thing. But that's really not true. I really don't know why I drank. All I know, I had this funny feeling all the time. It was just like something was going on in my body, and I felt like I'm missing something. I have to be someplace doing something, or there was this restlessness in me that I couldn't explain to you what it was. But it had nothing to do to want it off the earth, didn't want to live, or want to fit in, or nothing. I just had these strange feelings. I think that was the withdrawals. I think that's what it was. Later on, I figured it out. And today it's not important what it was. I had withdrawals and these funny feelings from the first time I drank, but never didn't tell me anything either. So anyhow, I stayed there for 12 years. I lived behind the Iron Curtain. And you don't get so popular, when you drink a lot and have others buy you drink. You people, you live in America, you don't know how good you have it. A lot of them, you take it for granted. You live behind the Iron Curtain, you live in a communist country, and you be young, and you go out, you have to have an ID card, and they can stop you anytime on the street and ask you for your ID card. And if you're young and you're in a dance hall, they had this new thing came out, then they could call it penicillin. It was just new. So they come at night on a dance hall, and they put you all in a paddy bag, and then they practice on you. When I hear so much people watch TV sometimes, and I hear people talking about this country or this woman denounced America, no, she wants to come back and she don't even want to take it back. I said, they ought to shoot her, Of course, everybody takes it for granted. If you don't like the president here, you say so, It's still nothing going to happen to you. But this is such a beautiful, it's a free place, It's just unreal, And you live 12 years with Hitler and 12 as the communist, and then, by the time I got here, I really didn't think fried chicken fly in your mouth. I know you have to work wherever you are for a living. But anyhow, so I left behind the Iron Curtain and on a passport, and just didn't go back. And when I went to West Germany, if you're young and you can take care of yourself and you have no police record, the East and West police works together. If you be wanted by the police or something, you have to go back. But I didn't have that problem. So if I take care of myself, I could stay. And And I was about, sometimes I get screwed up with the years. I think I was about 25. And I didn't even know how lost I was. It was the last I seen my mom, too. And then when I came here, I got in trouble, too. There's a couple of guys. First, I met this girl. I went to a registration camp, and then they said I could stay. And I met this girl, and then she said I should go with her. And then I went with her, and we went someplace, and we drank something, or we drank a lot anyhow. And when she disappeared, my suitcase, all I had left, disappeared, and I was in a strange place, and went on a train station. I started crying, and there were a couple of guys that came up, and they felt sorry for me, and they asked me if I would like to go with them to this particular place, and I said, sure. I didn't know what the hell to do, so I went with them, and when we got there, we got a motel, and we got 2 rooms. They had one, and I had one. And then we went out that night, and they left, and I had to stay. It's just like I had to. I had no choice, I couldn't just stop drinking. If I could, I would have done it a long time ago. I had to drink. I had to drink to live and live to drink. I just didn't know what it was. I just felt I was no good. I didn't know I had a sickness. I didn't know I had an illness. I just felt I was no good. I deserve everything that's coming to me. And then when I come back home to that hotel, and I go in the elevator, and there was police, and they arrested me. Those 2 guys told me to save the money up from the vacation. They really stole it. And they bought me a watch, and it's the first time I had a watch. And then I ended up in jail. They took the watch away. See, easy come, easy go. But anyhow, they locked me up for 10 days, but it never was on the record, because I really didn't know what happened. And they let me out. The 2 guys told the truth, that I didn't know anything, so they let me out. And then I found a job. I never had a problem finding a job. I was always a hard worker. The problem keeping a job. What can you do, How often can you back me out? That's the only thing they can find nothing, You can always use your back. But they have a rule, you can go only for 10 days. Then you have to go to a certain amount of doctors, so I stayed out for 9. Then I go back. And then one time I had no job, and I couldn't pay my rent. I went out with this girl, and I met this guy, and he's going to pay my rent. But he won something, and I wouldn't got it. The next day when I come home, and I will go look for a job, and when I come home, the guy cleaned me out. Shucks. So that night I went out with the girl, and we went to a restaurant. And I sat at the table, I cried like a little baby. That's where I met my ex-husband. He feels sorry for me, too. Oh, he was a tall guy. He was 6 feet something. He had a pair of paws. One of them was like my 2. Something, too. And I used to think, well, now somebody really going to protect me and take care of me. And he was in the army, and I couldn't speak hardly English. But, when you're in love or in heat, then you don't have to speak too much. The truth sounds terrible, doesn't it? Anyhow, we started dating, and he asked me, you want to get married? And I said, I can't get married. I said, no, I live with Hitler. They call me a Nazi. I live behind the Iron Curtain. They call me a communist. I got no birth certificate. Everything is burned down from the war. I said, I don't know who I am, where I belong to, or nothing. But a year later, we got married, and I married exactly what I was. We both drank. And now and then I got really brave. I took both fists and hit him. We had plenty of fist fights. I wasn't the one who had it, neither. just before we made up our mind for coming to the States, we had a big thing going. He had a scent around my throat and said, go ahead, you SFB, go ahead, kill me, who cares? I wouldn't say that now. I probably would have said I called the cops, you know. And I'm here because I'm supposed to be here. So we came to America, and we were here for about 6 months or so. He had a job down here where he used to work, and on the same place down there, across from him, there was this little place where they have about 10 or 20 seats or something like that in there, you know, where they make homemade soup and hot dogs and donuts and stuff. And I couldn't pronounce sausages or nothing, but he gave me the job. I know why he gave me the job today. Since I've been in AA, I know. I did the cooking, and I did the cleaning, and I did the washing the towels and everything. They always disappeared. When he come back, he was all flushed. I know I had a job. He was drunk, too. And when I was for about a year here, I had my first daughter, and we called her Heidi. And I got sick, so I had to quit. I couldn't look at the food, you know. I came right where I was supposed to be, so I had to stop. But when she was 6 months old, I started managing that place where we lived in, and you had to see that dump, you know. They had upstairs about 5 single rooms where drunks lived by the weeks, and they all shared one bathroom. And I got $5 cleaning charge for each one when I cleaned them. They didn't even have a laundromat or nothing. I went along, but I was so proud of myself because that's from we didn't have to pay rent, and that's how we bought our first furniture. You know, I was really proud of it too. I don't mind working. Nothing is beneath me, as long as I have an honest dollar. I don't care. So that's how we got our first furniture. And then when my daughter was about 3 years old, she starts just eating a hamburger and a hot dog, and I gonna have another one, right? I got so scared I thought it's gonna happen just like my mama. All of a sudden I got so scared I thought it's gonna happen one baby after the other, and he's gonna dump me in a strange country. And I was really afraid. And we had to move out of there because they didn't allow children in the building. It was okay with my first one, you know, because I managed it, but then they did. So we moved out. So I don't talk much about drinking. If you're drunk, you know, it gets progressive worse, right? That's all I did, you know. I always drink. But you know something, I always took good care of my children. I always have. And I never been brought up religious. But somehow in my heart, I know there was God. And today I definitely know that He watches over drunks and fools. And I don't mean this as a put down either, because we need Him the most, you know. Man's adversity is God's opportunity. I really believe that. Because sometimes where we all come from, the deathbed, the situation we've been, how come we are here? Why me, you know? When you really think about it, it's something else. Today I don't question it anymore. I just know there was God with me then. So then I had a little one, and it was about 2 years before I found out about AA one day. I really got sick, and I had the flu, and I didn't sleep, and I started talking to the light plugs and watched the wheel wasn't turned on, and I ended up in a fruit farm. And as soon as they closed the door, I was sitting on the door. I saw a couple of girls were sitting by the door. And I said, well, if they sneak out, I'm going to go with them. I didn't mind going there, but I was afraid as soon as they locked the door. And I don't know why, because, yeah, I do know. When I looked out at the window, I wasn't there safe either. There were all these raggedy people hanging on a tree, you know. It was just as bad as it was home. So what I did, I wanted to go through the door too, because by now I had a communication with the robots, and they told me to get blood from you earth people, and I got enough strength and I can go through the door, and so I did. But not through the door. I tried, and they didn't like it, so they gave me a private room, they told me. Told me not to touch anything, and that's exactly what I did. And I threw the food in his face, and then he strapped me to the bed. And since I wasn't there safe either, I told the psychiatrist the story. I figured it was a psychiatrist, but it wasn't my story. And then they gave me this damn medication, you know, if the food was over here, my hand was reaching over there. And since nothing was any different, I told them I lied to him. But I didn't lie. I told him I never watched TV and it wasn't turned on. And so they had a conference after 3 days and they asked me all kinds of questions and they asked me if I have one. I said, sure. But you asked me all these stupid questions. And they said, oh, smart ass, and they let me go home. And when I got in that car, my ex-husband says to me, come a little closer, honey, and I looked at him and I said, how long is that going to last? And it was just like that. And then 2 years later, I had to go for 2 more years, It's just gotten so bad. And one day I was just, no, 2 years before that, we went one time to the Redwoods, and there was this beautiful tree in there, and there had all kinds of pictures. And about one of them, it said a family that prays together, stays together, and had a kitchen prayer. And there was one that was Jesus' Last Supper, but I didn't know it then. I just bought that picture. I thought the man in the middle, was the beard was God. And so I bought a picture and I bought it, hung it over the fireplace. And I used to look at me, used to say, please help me out of this one and never do it again. And then I knew I couldn't promise nothing anymore. And I used to say, please help me, but I can promise you nothing. And 2 years later, I sat on a table and I says, please God help me to God I didn't know anything about. And I knew that day on the table that I was reborn, but I didn't understand what it was about. And I was 6 months sober. I found out my daughter called. I thought I called. And somebody came over. And I sent the children in the backyard. They were talking about AA, and I didn't know what it was. And he called for me because I couldn't. And then the woman called me back and asked me, want to go to a meeting? And I said, yes. And she asked me if I had something to drink. And I said, yes. I said, yes, yes, yes. And I went. And it wasn't like it is here, what I've been seeing in Beaufort. It was nothing like that. She picked me up and she said, and you said over, she was sitting here, and you said over here, and the kids have to change too. Everything has to change. When you come home, you be nice to your husband. Oh, he was asking her first, do I have to stop drinking too? And she said, no, you're not the alcoholic. And so we had to change everything, and she told me when I come home, I have to ask, be nice to him. And so I come home and says, did you have a nice day, honey? And he told me a gossip about a woman who goes to church and had an affair. And so I come back the next day and I told this to this woman. And I was early in my months or so. And she says to me, you can't gossip. So I come home, I told him, I said, honey, you can tell me only nice things. They told me I can't gossip in AA. And he says, you're nuts. So it was somebody else, and the other lady took me to a meeting. So now I come with the other lady there, and they both going to call and start a fight. The one who took me first said to the other, what are you doing with her? After all I done for her. So the second lady said, you didn't do nothing for her, you done it for yourself. I was going in a hole. I was so scared. But I tell you something, I was there for the grace of God, and you wouldn't have got me out if I had to walk. I turned around and I said, Pat, I want to thank you for what you done for me, but I would like to be on my own. Because I was dumb and stupid and scared, But I went every night to meeting. And when we were 2.5 months sober, we bought our home and we moved to the valley. And I had a lot of phone numbers, but I didn't know I had them, but I had them. When I got to A, people said, see, this is the big book, and all the answers on the book. Now you get the book. And so I got the book, but I couldn't read. I got all the books, but I couldn't read them. But I know them today, and here. If you don't have the big book, you don't know what you're missing. You're cheating yourself out of a second chance in life. That big book is a design for living like you will never ever find anything else in this world. It's just something else. It's unreal. Anyhow, I got the books, and we moved in 2.5 months, and then I was 12 months sober, and I got a new home group, and that home group had about 200 people. And so I listened, and I got me a book sponsor, and I got me a step sponsor, and I got me a spiritual sponsor. And they loved me so much, they told me the truth. They're no mercy with me. She used to give me a directory and she put on book study, step study, women reading. Usually when they come in and you're a woman, I don't hear women say that, but that's the truth. You really don't trust a woman when you come in here. At least I didn't. I figured everybody's like me. They're all out to get my husband. I used to know, but anyhow, when I was drinking, even if it wasn't true, but that's what I done. So I felt everybody was like me, so I wouldn't trust them. And there was a woman meeting and speaker meeting and discussion meetings and meetings and meetings and meetings. And that's what I did. And when I didn't understand what the book said, and the book study people read to me. When I was about my first 5 years, for instance, was just about an introduction into AA. And when I was 5 years old, that's when God let me know that I was an individual. That we all have the same disease, but that I am an individual. And that we do it all together, but I'm the one who has to change me. It's a we thing, but I'm the one who's responsible for my action. I'm the one responsible who create my own problems. I'm the one who has to change my attitude. If you don't change you, there's nothing I can do about it. I have to. Anyhow, so I said one time to her, I said, what if that poor man becomes an alcoholic like me? He has to suffer like me. And she looked me straight in the eye and said, I said, what do you mean? She said, you just worry what happened to you and the kids. Well, it didn't sound good, But she was right. It's exactly what I was afraid. He kept drinking, and I stayed sober. And it wasn't easy. Not the drinking part. God removed the desire to drink from me, and so therefore I had no excuse. But I see other people coming to AA and they say, if you were lonely too, and I say I'm doing exactly the opposite of what they were saying. So I tell my sponsor, and she says, put one finger on you, you're putting one out there, 3 points back at you. She always put it back on me, no matter what I try to do. And then she told me from the beginning I had an alcoholic mind, and I had to retrain my thinking from alcoholic thinking into sober thinking. And never comes to, well, at least I didn't have to drink. She said, tough shit. There's a lot of people in this world never had a drink and doing just fine. She said, what's your excuse now? You're not drinking. But anyhow, then she told me, what I want you to do, instead of saying, at least I didn't have a drink, I want you to say, thank God I'm sober. So you get that mind retrained to think positive and think sober thoughts. And that's what I did. And I read my 24-hour book every day. I had on a John, and I read it every day. And there was a little pamphlet out, and it used to say, just for today. And there were 24 things you do just for today. You do 2 things, what you don't like to do, just for the exercise of it. Or you do somebody a good deed, but it don't count if you talk about it, if somebody find out. So I went to my husband right away and ask him, who I could do a good deed and won't get found out. But I was sincere, I really wanted to do it. I used to think I'm stupid and I'm dumb and all these things because I've been that told. But to know I know different. I'm a pretty smart cookie. I can do anything I make up my mind to be, I know I can. Now, when I say I can do anything, what I mean, I can do anything that is what is right. I've also been told there are 3 ways to go. There's your way, my way, and the right way. And if I do what's right, I will always have God's blessings. And it's true, too. So when I was 5 years old, he let me know, in other words, where I can go. He came for about 3 months one time to AA, so he could use it against me, find out what it was all about when I was 5 years old, but he threw me out, and he kept the kids away from me. And all of a sudden, something came over me, and I didn't trust anybody in AA. I didn't trust none of you. That doesn't mean that you weren't trustworthy. I just felt that way. And that's when I went on my knees again. I always go on my knees, but this time I was desperate again. I said, Father, please help me. I don't like the way I feel. And one of my babies, and a friend of mine, he's my husband now, I went to dinner and I told him I need help. I gotta trust somebody. I didn't know it then, but where my husband works, they all collected money and got me a place to stay. And he wouldn't put in for the divorce, and the next 2 years I said I go nuts, but I put that in for the divorce, and the judge knew all about it. I had a small place, and the judge knew what's going on already. When he came to court, I took the third step 3 times. I took it one time when I got here, and then I took it by the book with my sponsor. And I took it the third time when I was in court, and his attorney said I couldn't have the children until I go home on a restraining order. And I said, I can't do that. And I closed my eyes and I said, Father, if you want my kids, that's all I got left, you can have them. And I know today, if I just wanted to, because I would have thought that I was better than he, it wouldn't have meant nothing. But I really believed God could take him if he wanted to. I would do whatever he wants me to do. And then I opened my eyes, and the attorney said it's okay, and he talked to the judge, and the judge talked to the children, and then he gave me the children. There were times I wasn't so sure if I did the right thing. I know the next 2 years was real hard. My husband, Bill, and my baby, they used to take me to meetings all the time. And one time, when he took me home, I got hot and I got cold and I got so scared. And when I came home, I went on my knees and I asked God. I said, Father, I'm not falling in love with this Bill. It's not supposed to be. Please take it away from me. I don't want to hurt nobody. See, God gave me the kids, but he also gave me somebody. And that's why I know my first 17 years I was in need. See, this is the first time in my life that I knew something inside. I've never known that before. See, what God put in here for me, for Bill, I knew that was love. I can't explain it, see, in words. He just put some inside of me. He used to say, and that's true. He could take his teeth out and put them on my plate. Wouldn't bother me. If that's not love, what is? But see, that's why I say that. People don't understand, you know. When I was 3 years old, when I told one to my sponsor, I said, I just fell in love with my husband. She said, that's nice, you can fall out of love again. I said, no, she got a lot of nerve. But I know what it was. I know what is today. God gave me the release with love then. It was so bad one time, I just couldn't take it anymore. And I was on the floor, and I hit the floor until I was blue green. I couldn't breathe. And I said, God, let me die. I don't want to live no more. And then I got up from the floor, and instead of reaching for the big book, I had a Sermon on the Mount in my hand. And I couldn't pronounce the words, but I started reading it. And all of a sudden, I was okay. You see, I knew, I understood. I can't explain it, but I just knew that it was release with love then. I had so many things happen in my life. Through reading Emmett Fox's book, I understand the meaning in a great book. But when it talks about that God wants you to be happy, joyous, and free, I understood that. Sure, he wants only the best for you, and he loves it. I understood all that. But it means more. See, in that little sentence, there comes some back to me one time that somebody said to me, God had also helped himself. When I was drinking, I used to say, well, I didn't need him then for if I have to do it. I didn't understand it. So today, when in a big book, it says that God wants me to be happy, joyous, and free, I have to figure out what I have to do. In order to be happy, I have to live the right kind of life. Happiness is the byproduct of living the right kind of life. And if I want to be joyous, I have to grow spiritually. And if I want to be free, I have to tell the truth. The truth will set me free. So see, all these things, I came to understand what it meant. See, God has given me everything. You put it all there in a book already for me. All that I have to do, that's what's called studying. Book studies, you know. I couldn't understand. It says, our book is meant to be suggestive only, right? And then it says, you must do this and you must do this. But I in my heart, I know that the book tells the truth. No matter when it's written, could be 1,500, 2,000 years from now, the book will always be the same. The truth don't change. So the book is always valid. So I couldn't understand. It sounded like controversies. Till I looked the word up, suggestion. It said, sorry, command. It's something else, you know. And there were, God been so good to me, you know. There were first 100 people, and he wrote, this is precisely how we have recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. And then there's Bill's story when he was about a year sober, and he talked to his wife. What was her name? Lewis, I think. And he says, I don't think they think it's working, you know. I've got nobody sober. And she looked at him. She said, you haven't had a drink in a year. I can't quote it exactly, but that's exactly the way it goes. I mean, you know, that's what she says. And there is how it works. You hear people saying, hey, I don't know how it works. Get the big book. Tells you how it works. So H for honesty, O for open-mindedness, and a W for willingness. And then there says, and there is a solution. See, the topic tells you exactly that I wouldn't say you're the creator of your problems. You are, but I have no right to say it. I'm the creator of my own problems, see? So the book says there is a solution. And they say, well, can't take no 12 steps, like I don't know how to work. There's a portion of the book that says how to work with others. It's all in there. But the book is not a theory. It has to be lived. You have to apply it to yourself. And that's the same with faith. Faith without work is dead. I can say, oh, Father, please let there be light. And he said, oh, honey, get up your duff and turn the switch. You see? I can say all these things until I apply it to myself. Nothing's going to happen in my life. So if you're feeling grateful and happy, don't feel sorry for me what I learned in my past and childhood. Hell no. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have what I have today. I know what hunger is. I don't take a damn thing for granted. I don't take anything for granted. Living in a free country, the clothes I wear, people always say, look at all the jewelry. If I had what she had, you know, I can be sober too. Everything I never worked for. You know, I worked hard for it. One time I got a nice pair of what they call like alligator shoe. I got a thrift shop from a park, and then I bought a pair of mansion. And I'm not denying it to do a damn thing, you know. I don't know and doing all these things. I love to do homework. I love to do all these things. And I have learned it all, how to live through that book. And then the book says you have no business putting the Bible down or religion. If you're not a psychiatrist, you're not a clergyman, you're none of these things, but you also have no business putting them down. And if somebody needs professional help, that's what they should have. If you're honest with them, you're going to get it. You won't even need a set of pills. Nobody could have been any cookier than I was. If you believing in God, believing means relying on Him. I ask Him God for His blessing, but I'll commit adultery on you. I say, hey, it ain't gonna work. So this is what's so beautiful, see? I'm not responsible for anybody but my own actions. I'm responsible for nobody but my own actions. I can change you, but I can change myself. And whatever I put into it is what I'm going to get out to it. It might sound corny to you, but I want to please God. I'll be 11 years married. Bill adopted our 2 girls. My oldest girl was 4 years in the Marines. She's 6 years now married. And she just now, this last 6 months, said, Mom, she used to say all the time, she wanted to be my friend. And just the last time she said, you know, all of a sudden you don't have to talk about it just there. She tells me things that blush you. It's beautiful, you know, it's so beautiful. And she don't look at me as like you look at Mom. She sees me as a woman, as hurting, you know, feelings, that I have feelings also. I tell you, and I stuck with Bill when we got the kids, when education won. The kids used to look at me and I said, oh my God, what the hell does, you know, they're my kids. You know, But then I used to pray and I said, please, Father, help me. There's a reason, there's something I have to learn. And he did. Yes, he does know. He raised two. And so I stuck with him. And I told the kids, I say, if you love me in spite of it, it's okay. Have you ever heard when people say, if you're uncomfortable, you're not doing God's will? That's not true. Not for me, it isn't. When I had to put down certain rules and regulations and I had to stick with them, I was very uncomfortable. But when the reports came in, I was very happy. And I had the reward. I didn't raise them. He helped me. We didn't raise them. We prepared them for life. If anything ever happened in their marriage, they have a nice education. The oldest one is a legal secretary. They have something they can fall back. Something I wished I had. But it would have never happened if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous, if it wasn't for the good Lord. When I was 6 years in AA, God introduced me to his son. Then I understood what that picture was I bought, Jesus' Last Supper. And then I got introduced to a lady, to Sister Martha in a woman meeting, and he asked me, and I talked about my mom, and she asked me, she was Catholic, she asked me if I would like to have a picture. And I said, sure. I thought she'd bring me a little picture of Mary and little angels around. But she brought me a picture. It was the lady from Guadalupe. In 1530-some, she appeared to an Indian boy. I tell you why I tell you this. When we got here to South Carolina, and we were in the hotel room, and I said, Father, we don't mind walking, doing the footwork. Just let us know when we find a place. And when we found this place, in the kitchen was the Serenity Prayer. And in the bedroom was the same picture I have, the lady from Guadalupe. And I said, honey, we got our home. Like particular Beaufort from the bugs. But the home is beautiful. It's peaceful and quiet. I can read, I can study, and it's just beautiful. And before I forget, I want to thank you so much that you thought enough of me to ask me. I'm always a nervous wreck. Mostly my feet fall asleep when I'm finished. I have the most beautiful husband in the world. He's such a good man. Nobody ever been good to me. I've been told I'm stupid and I'm dumb. And he told me he never seen a better mother in his whole life. He said, I've never seen anybody who does things the way you do. He told me the things I thought I was, but I never had the nerve to say anything. I just didn't feel that. I always felt inadequate. And when I see the woman in all that pretty makeup, and then, I felt so stupid. Then I went to the makeup company and I looked at the lady and said, I sure love your eyes. Could you explain it to me how you do it? That's the only way I had to learn. And now I know how that the skin is so damn wrinkled. The skin looks so good like the yellow. I try so hard, but it won't go. But I come up with something much better. It comes from within. What's the difference, if I'm wrinkled up with my eyes glitter? The good Lord loves me just the way I am. I like to please God. I really want to please God. I'm not even afraid to die. Doesn't mean I want to, but I'm not afraid of it anymore. And now I want to close with a vision for you. A book is meant to be suggestive only. We realize we know only a little. God will constantly disclose more to you and to us. Ask him in your morning meditation what you can do each day for the man who's still sick. The answer will come if your own house is in order. But obviously you cannot transmit something you haven't got. See to it that your relationship with him is right, and great events will come to pass for you and countless others. This is the great fact for us. Abandon yourself to God as you understand God. Admit your faults to him and to your fellows. Clear away the wreckage of your past. Give freely of what you find and join us. We shall be busy in the fellowship of the Spirit, and you will surely meet some of us as you trudge the road of happy destiny. May God bless you and keep you until then. Thank you.